Okay, this is the last video for a while. It's going to focus on examination technique for paper one, which is what your mock will be in November. Obviously, some of this will carry over to paper two. In fact, the only real difference is the 9-mark question, but we want to make sure that you're as ready as you are for your mock exam. So, basic information about the whole course. There are 2 papers, each one's worth 50%. As I said, you're doing a mock on paper one, which covers business activity, marketing, and human resources. And then the second paper covers what you're learning currently in year 11 on operations, finance, and external influences. Obviously, the biggest thing for you there is that during lockdown, human resources was taught remotely, and we've been trying to catch you up with all of that. So that's a key area for you to focus on. Both papers have 15 multiple choice questions. Both papers then have 3 case studies in them, all of them compulsory. Paper one has a 9-mark decision-making question, and that'll be towards the end of the paper. And paper two has a 9-mark synoptic question. We're not going to talk about that in this presentation. We're focusing on paper one. So, always look for the command word. You've got for your knowledge questions, identify, state, and explain. These do not need to be long answers. In fact, they could be one-word answers, especially for identify or state. So identifying 2 pricing strategies, you can simply write skimming and cost plus. Do not write out a big sentence, wasting time. One method they could use is price skimming, another would be cost plus. Just state them, okay? The only time you need to write a sentence is if it's an explain, because this needs knowledge and understanding. So if you're explaining skimming, then you would say skimming is when you have a unique product so that you can charge a high price when it's first launched and then lower the price as more competitors enter the market. You've given the definition and you've explained how it works. You then move up to application. Here you would expect to see calculate, complete, or explain as a keyword. So in this case, you must use something from the case study to answer these. Now with calculate and complete, that's relatively easy to do. It will probably be some numbers for a calculate. Well, it will be numbers for a calculate question. And for complete, it could be a cash flow, it could be a graph. But again, you're using information from the case study to do that. If it's an explain question that requires application, then it has to be in context. So we've got the question of explain why Boots will need to recruit workers. Well, in the case study, they were all talking about Christmas. So you would then say Boots may find they need temporary workers, which is the bit from the syllabus, the knowledge bit, as Christmas, and that's the bit from the case study, the application, is a busy period for them and they need the extra staff to ensure they can offer the same standard of customer service. Okay, so make sure that you've put it into context. The analyze questions are usually a 3-mark question, broken down into knowledge, application, and analysis. Now, the knowledge could be understanding, so just be careful with that. It usually focuses on one thing, so you might be an advantage of using interviews or a disadvantage of using batch production. Okay, break it down, make sure that you've got 3 potential marks. So the knowledge and or understanding is the definition. So an interview is when you see the applicant face to face and ask them a question about their employment history. So that's your knowledge and understanding of what an interview is. You then need to apply it to the case study. So Simon will interview the 3 candidates for the new baker in his bakery, clearly what the case study must be about. And then the analysis has to kind of put that context into why and answer the question. So this is an advantage of using those interviews. So this is good for Simon as he can ask a variety of questions about how to bake bread so he can find the best candidate for the job. However, it might be time consuming to interview a lot of candidates. You don't always need the negative bit on the end because you haven't got the time necessarily. But if you're struggling to put a full contextual answer in there, get some of that on anyway. It won't hurt. So you've then got discuss and evaluate command words. So these questions require you to evaluate, and it means at the end of your answer there should be some sort of judgment. These questions are likely to be 6 or 7-mark questions, and we're going to come on to more about those in a moment. You need to think like the analyze question structure. Offer your knowledge, apply it, give it an advantage and a disadvantage, then offer your judgment. Remember that your judgment might depend upon something. So how much money they've got available, whether the staff are competent, trained, or even enough. What the competition is doing. So again, make sure you're pulling out of the case study the information you can see. So we've got a question here. Evaluate whether Sharon is right to use on-the-job training for the new factory worker. Well, what you would start off with is the knowledge and understanding. So on-the-job training is when the worker is trained whilst they're at work by a more experienced employee. Then we've got the context. So Sharon would find this cheaper than sending the new employee on a course, and the new employee would be producing T-shirts from day one. So we've got Sharon in there, we've got T-shirts in there. We know what this was in the case study. However, the quality of those first T-shirts might be poor, and someone more experienced has got to stop and teach them, meaning the productivity will fall until the new employee settles in. So we've balanced out that argument. Yes, it's cheaper, but we've got problems with the quality. And then we need a judgment. Okay, so remember what we were saying about offer that judgment up, and then you want a couple of points to support it. So if the new employee has some experience in sewing, I think that on the job is the best way as it is relevant to the job, and they will quickly pick up the job if they are taught how to do it by someone experienced. So we've committed there. We've actually said, I think they should use on the job, and then we've started to back it up. We've got the first point there about picking it up quickly. Then we've got, however, if they're inexperienced, it may be better to teach them separately off the job until they have the skills needed to make the t-shirts for the customer. Not necessarily the best answer here, in retrospect. Choose one and stick with it. Okay, so within the case studies, you will have some structured questions, and they're made up of either a 3 plus 3 plus 3, 6 plus 3, or a 2 plus 7. And you'll know because it will actually say, like 17D 1, 2, 3, or 17D 1 and 2, if it's the 6 and 3 and the 2 and 7. So it means that they're all related. Now, these are 9-mark questions that have simply been split up according to their skills. So a 2 plus 7 question is 2 marks for knowledge and then 7 for application, analysis, and evaluation. Whereas 6 and 3 is the 6 marks for knowledge, understanding, and analysis, with the recommendation broken out separately as 3 marks. And the 333 is the knowledge and application and analysis mark twice, and then 3 marks for a recommendation. You will only find the keyword recommend in these types of question. So again, if you see that, you know that that's related to what has just come before it. So an example of a 333 might be analyze one advantage of being a sole trader, one disadvantage of being a private limited company, and then choosing between those two. So a sole trader is when you set up a business on your own. An advantage of Simon doing that is he gets to keep all of the profits the bakery makes and he'll not have to share them. You then got a private limited company will have shareholders. It means Simon would have to keep these shareholders happy and pay dividends to them out of the profits. Okay, haven't actually explained why that's a disadvantage there, meaning he doesn't get to keep it himself. And then you've got the judgment for 3. So remember, commit to 1 and justify it for 2 marks. So Simon should set up as a sole trader, tick. This is because it will be a small business and he'll be able to keep control of all the decisions and the money, even though he will have an unlimited liability. To start with, he could grow to a private limited company once he is more successful. So you've got 2 ticks for that judgment. Okay, you're backing up why you think he should be a sole trader. If we take a 6 and a 3, so this might be analyze one advantage and disadvantage of Diane allowing her staff to work from home. So recommend whether she should implement home working. So in that 6, you've got to get your knowledge across and the advantage and the disadvantage. Okay, so working from home means the worker completes work for the business from home. This might include research, phone calls, writing reports, etc. This could be an advantage for Diane. She will not need a big premises and it will save her money to help boost her profits. Notice that I'm keeping this to Diane, not her workers. And we've got to the money. Always try and get to the money. So she has a smaller premises, it will save her money, boost her profits. So there's your advantage. The disadvantage is there may be a loss of efficiency as workers may not communicate effectively, and this could see Diane's customers unhappy and they may refuse to pay or go elsewhere, ultimately losing money. So we've got that effect of not communicating properly and we've got to the money. Okay, so that gets you your 6 marks. And then your judgment, remember, commit to 1, back it up for 2. So Diane should allow her workers to work from home. Tick, first mark. They type, the type of work she is asking them to do can easily be carried out from home, and this will help keep the running costs of the business down whilst improving profit margins. So you've got another couple of points there to justify the choice that you've made. Then you've got your 2, 7. Remember, this time the 2 is for knowledge that's been separated out. Normally, it will be like a state question, and then you've got a recommend probably for the 7, or an evaluate for the 7. So here we've got state 2 pricing methods a business can use, and then recommend a suitable pricing methods for Sharon's t-shirts. Notice here that the state is for a business, because this is a knowledge question. It doesn't have to be related to Sharon's business. So in theory, you could choose any 2 strategies you wanted to. In reality, you probably want to choose a method that is relevant to Sharon, but don't panic about that. The question says a business, so any pricing method of the ones that you've learned. So I've chosen cost plus and competitor pricing, and then the application kicks in for the 7 marker. So Sharon may choose to use cost plus pricing, which is when she adds a percentage onto the raw material cost for her profit. You don't really need to do that because the knowledge mark has already been gained, but it's a good way just to ensure that you know what you're talking about. This way, she's guaranteed to make a profit on each t-shirt, but she would need a very good understanding of the costs, and she'll need to choose the right percentage margin. Alternatively, she may use competitor pricing, which is when the prices of her t-shirts similar to that of her competitors. She may have to do this if the market is competitive, but runs the risk of not covering her costs if the price is too low. So with the 7 marker, you've got to have 2 points in there. So you're going to talk about the 2 methods, which is why I said you perhaps want to make sure you talk about the 2 you chose in the first part of the question. Don't forget the judgment is the same. You need to commit and justify for 2. So Sharon's t-shirts are unique, and she may find she can charge higher prices and people will still buy them. So a skimming strategy may work best until the competition starts copying her, and she may need to move to a more competitor-based price. So I've committed to skimming, and I've said why, and then I've also said that that may still change in the future. Okay, so the last slide here covers the 9-mark question in paper 1. So in your 3 case studies, you'll have those scaffolded questions. In the last question, there will be a scaffold question, but there will also be a 9-mark question. Okay, and it is a decision-making question. You're going to have to make a decision on behalf of that business based on something. It will usually direct you to use some numerical data to support your work. Make sure you use it. That's where your application marks are coming from. If you do not use the data, you do not get any application marks, and that's 2 out of the 9 gone. You need to come to a judgment at the end. So it needs to be yes or no, or is this effective or ineffective, or does it have a big or a small impact? But it's a decision. Okay, so make the decision. So tackle this question, sorry, by giving up knowledge mark and understanding mark based on what it's about. Now, I can't say it will always be market research. Last year, the paper was based on human research data and how many employees were there. So, use that numerical data for your application. If you need to do some calculations, do them. Use a percentage change, okay, to work out what's changed if there's data there that you can do that with. Then for the analysis marks, you've got 2 analysis marks available, and I'm suggesting that you give 1 positive and 1 negative analytical point based on the decision that you're having to make with the data you've got. And then you've got your evaluation again. It's the 3 marks for evaluation. You need to do again the judgment and then the justification for 2. But it's got to be based and answer the question, what was the decision you had to make? Hopefully, if you can follow this through and look at that structure, then you can be successful in answering not only this 9-mark question, but the previous scaffold questions as well. Good luck in your exams, and we'll focus on paper 2 in the new year.